You cite many different statutory provisions that impose tariffs. And you have a point if that's the relevant universe. What if the relevant universe is tariffs that are imposed in emergency situations?
Yes. So I think it cuts the other way. So, as Justice Jackson said, it's when you're in an emergency situation, the statutes actually have to speak with more precision. The public needs to know because emergencies beget emergencies. And I would say the best way of understanding what Congress does in emergencies is to look at their emergency statutes. Not one has ever given the president a taxation power or a tariff power. We've had all sorts of emergencies for 238 years. No president has ever said, oh, the way to deal with that is I need to have a tariff authority. And as Justice Sotomayor said, IEPA gives already a quota power, so you can get what the foreign policy piece of it is through that. I'd also say, Justice Alito, Dames and Moore, which the Chief Justice referred to earlier, I think is really important here because the Solicitor General in that case made a similar argument to what you just heard on the claims provisions. He said it falls within regulate. Regulate is a capacious term. He said, Justice Alito, what you said, this is an emergency situation. And he said you've got to defer to the president on a major issue of national security about this very statute. And what did the court do? It rejected those arguments and said IEPA doesn't cover this.
You say that this is not, this case does not, these executive orders do not address an unusual and extraordinary threat. I understand that argument. Suppose that the facts were that it was suppose that there was an imminent threat of war, not a declared war, but an imminent threat of war with a very powerful enemy whose economy was heavily dependent on U.S. trade. Could a president under this provision impose a tariff as a way of trying to stave off that war? Or would you say no, the president lacks that power?
Couldn't do tariff, but could do quota, embargo, all of those things.
Could do all those things, but the president could not impose a tariff. That's the one thing he couldn't do.
There's a category shift between a tariff and the other 8 powers in IEPA because it is revenue raising. So it's not a difference in degree or something like that. That's why, I don't doubt tomorrow.
Even if the purpose of this had nothing whatsoever to do with raising 1 penny. The president didn't want to raise 1 penny. The president wanted to deter aggression that would bring the United States into a war. You would say, no, can't do that.
Yeah, Justice Alito, I think you've said many times the purpose isn't what you look at. You look to actually what the government is doing. And if you disagree, if you think we're, if you think, or excuse me, if you ruled for us and the president says, I need this power, he can go across the street to Congress tomorrow and get it by a simple majority through reconciliation. But if you vote for them, this power, as Justice Gorsuch said, as Justice Barrett said, is going to be stuck with us forever. The power to jump.
Can I ask you?